The first thing Dr. Lisa noticed when she opened her eyes was the strange humming sound. It wasn't like any hospital equipment she'd ever heard before. The sound seemed to come from everywhere at once, a gentle vibration that made her feel oddly calm despite her confusion. She tried to sit up, but her muscles felt weak and unsteady. How long had she been lying here? The last thing she remembered was being in the Arctic with her research team. They had been studying some unusual readings in the ice, something that didn't make sense according to any known science. The room around her looked like no medical facility she'd ever seen. The walls seemed to glow with a soft, pearl-like light that shifted and moved like living water. There were no windows, but somehow the space didn't feel closed in. The air itself felt different, cleaner, and somehow more alive than normal air. Lisa tried to remember what had happened. She had been the lead scientist on an expedition to investigate strange electromagnetic signals coming from beneath the Arctic ice. The readings were unlike anything anyone had ever recorded before. They seemed to pulse with a rhythm that almost felt like a heartbeat. Her team had been drilling down through the ice for 3 days when they found them. Crystalline structures, perfectly formed and glowing with their own inner light. They were beautiful, almost hypnotic in the way they seemed to pulse and shift. Colors Lisa had never seen anything like them in all her years of geological research. She remembered reaching out to touch one of the crystals. It had felt warm, despite being buried in ice for who knows how long. The moment her gloved hand made contact, the world had exploded into light and sound. Then nothing. Now she was here, wherever here was. The medical equipment around her looked like it belonged in a science fiction movie. Sleek, seamless devices that seemed to float rather than sit on stands. Screens that showed her vital signs. In symbols she didn't recognize, though somehow she understood they meant she was healthy. A sound at the doorway made her turn her head. What she saw made her wonder if she was still dreaming. A tall figure approached her bed, moving with fluid grace that seemed almost like floating. The being was humanoid, but clearly not human. Skin had a translucent quality that seemed to shimmer with an inner light, and its eyes were large and kind, filled with what looked like genuine concern. "Please don't be afraid," the being said, though Lisa realized she hadn't heard the words. With her ears, the communications seemed to happen directly in her mind, clear and unmistakable. "My name is Kale, and I am what you might call a supervisor here. You are safe." Lisa tried to speak, but found her voice was barely a whisper. "Where am I? What happened to my team?" Kale moved closer, and Lisa could see that his expression was gentle and patient. "You are in a medical facility designed to help you recover. Your team is safe, though they believe you were lost in an avalanche. That was necessary to protect both you and them." "An avalanche? But I remember the crystals, the light." "Yes, you do remember. That's good. Means your mind is processing the transition well." Kale seemed to pause, as if choosing his words carefully. "Lisa, what I'm about to tell you will be difficult to accept. You have been in a state of suspended animation for over 20 years. The words hit her like a physical blow. 20 years. That's impossible. I feel like I just closed my eyes a moment ago. I know it seems impossible, but it's true. Date is now 2024. You've been unconscious since 2003. Kale's mental voice was gentle but firm. "The crystals you touched were part of an ancient monitoring system, and you made contact. They triggered a protective response that kept you alive but unconscious." Lisa felt her world spinning. 20 years? Her parents would be in their 80s now, if they were still alive. Her younger brother would be middle-aged. Her entire life had passed by while she slept. "But why?" she whispered. "Why would touching those crystals do this to me?" Kale moved to a chair beside her bed, settling into it with that same fluid grace. "Because those crystals were never meant to be found by humans, at least not yet. They are part of a network that has been monitoring your planet for thousands of years." "Monitoring? Who's been monitoring us?" "My people, among others. We are called the Zephyrians, and we have been watching over Earth since your species first began to develop complex societies. We are not conquerors or experimenters. Think of us as concerned neighbors who want to make sure you develop safely. Lisa's scientific mind struggled to process this information. You're saying aliens have been watching us for thousands of years? But why? And why haven't you made contact? Because contact at the wrong time can be devastating for a developing species. We've seen civilizations destroy themselves when they learn too much too quickly. Your species has been progressing remarkably well, but you're approaching a critical point in your development. What kind of critical point? Cale was quiet for a moment, and Lisa could sense he was carefully considering. His response: your scientists are on the verge of discoveries that could either help your species transcend to a higher level of existence or destroy you completely. The crystals you found were part of a fail-safe system. It's designed to prevent dangerous knowledge from being discovered before your species is ready. So my touching them was an accident. Not entirely. The crystals respond to individuals with certain neural patterns and moral qualities. They wouldn't have reacted to just anyone. You were chosen, in a sense, though you didn't know it at the time. Lisa felt overwhelmed. The idea that she had been unconscious for 20 years was hard enough to accept. Now she was being told that aliens had been watching humanity and that she had somehow been selected for this experience. What happens now? She asked. Now you need to recover your strength and adjust to this new reality. Your body has been perfectly preserved, but your mind needs time to process everything that has happened. When you're ready, there will be decisions to make about your future. What kind of decisions? Cale's expression became even more serious. The kind that could affect not just your life, but the future of your entire species. But for now, you need to rest and heal. There will be time for everything else later. As if responding to his words, Lisa felt a wave of exhaustion wash over her. Despite having been unconscious for 20 years, she felt incredibly tired. Her eyes began to close, and she heard Cale's gentle voice in her mind. Sleep now, Lisa. When you wake up, we'll begin to show you what your world has become during your absence. Some things will surprise you, others will give you hope. Your real journey is just beginning. As consciousness faded, Lisa's last thought was wondering whether she was about to wake up from the strangest dream of her life, or if she was falling asleep in a reality far stranger than any dream she could have imagined. Soft humming of the alien medical equipment continued. A gentle lullaby that seemed to promise that whatever came next, she would not face it alone. 3 days had passed since Lisa first woke up in the alien medical facility. Each morning she felt a little stronger, a little more aware of her surroundings. The strange humming that had first caught her attention now felt comforting, like a steady heartbeat that reminded her she was alive and safe. Cale visited her every day, always patient and gentle in his explanations. Today felt different, though. When he entered her room, his usually calm expression carried something that looked almost like nervousness. Lisa, are you feeling strong? Enough for a longer conversation today? He asked, settling into the chair beside her bed. She nodded, sitting up straighter. I think so. I've been wondering about so many things. You mentioned that your people have been watching Earth for thousands of years. I need to understand what that really means. Cale was quiet for a moment, and Lisa could sense he was choosing his words carefully. What I'm about to show you will change how you see everything about human history. You sure you're ready? I've been unconscious for 20 years because I touched some alien crystals. I think I'm past worrying about what might shock me. A small smile crossed Cale's features. Your species' sense of humor is one of the things we find most endearing about you. He gestured to the wall, which suddenly came alive with moving images. Let me show you the truth about your world. The wall displayed what looked like Earth from space, but not the Earth Lisa remembered. This one pulsed with a network of light that seemed to connect points all across the globe. The lights were subtle, almost hidden, but once she noticed them, she couldn't look away. These are monitoring stations, Cale explained. We placed them throughout your planet during your early development. They serve two purposes: to observe your progress and to intervene when necessary. Intervene how? The images on the wall shifted, showing what looked like historical scenes. Lisa saw ancient civilizations, medieval battles, and more recent events from human history. But in each scene, there were subtle differences from what she remembered learning in school. Your historians record many close calls throughout your development, Kale continued. Times when wars almost destroyed entire civilizations, when diseases nearly wiped out populations, when natural disasters threatened to set your species back hundreds of years. What they don't record is how many of these disasters were prevented or minimized. Lisa watched in amazement as the images showed what looked like natural phenomena occurring at just the right moments to prevent catastrophic events. Storms that ended wars, discoveries that appeared just when they were needed most, and leaders who seemed to make impossibly wise decisions at crucial moments. You're saying your people have been secretly helping us all along? Not helping. In the way you might think, we don't interfere with your free will or make decisions for you. But we do sometimes. Influence conditions to give you better opportunities to make the right choices yourselves. The wall showed more recent history now. Lisa saw images of the late 20th and early 21st centuries, events that had happened while she was unconscious. She watched as humanity seemed to narrowly avoid several potential disasters that could have ended civilization. The nuclear tensions that almost led to war in 2008, Kale said softly. The climate crisis that nearly reached a point of no return in 2015. The economic collapse that could have destroyed global cooperation in 2019. All of these were resolved through what your people thought were fortunate coincidences or last-minute breakthroughs. Lisa felt a chill run down her spine. But why? Why do you care what happens to us? Because we were once where you are now? Thousands of years ago, my people faced the same challenges you're facing. We had to choose between destroying ourselves or growing beyond our limitations. We were fortunate enough to have guidance from an even older civilization. And now you're passing that guidance on to us. It's more complicated than that. The universe is full of life, Lisa. Countless species on countless worlds, all at different stages of development. Some never make it past their early aggressive phases. Others transcend to become something greater than they ever imagined possible. The images on the wall shifted again, showing what looked like other worlds, other civilizations. Some were beautiful beyond description, with beings that seemed to exist in perfect harmony with their environments. Others showed the remnants of dead worlds, the aftermath of civilizations that had destroyed themselves. Your species is approaching what we call the convergence, Kale explained. It's a critical point where you'll either learn to work together and reach for something greater, or you'll turn your advancing technology against yourselves. How do you know which way we'll go? We don't. That's what makes this so crucial. Every species faces this moment differently. Some embrace it with wisdom and courage. Others react with fear and aggression. The choice is always yours to make. Lisa stared at the images of failed civilizations, feeling the weight of what Kale was telling her. What happens if we choose wrong? Then you join the majority of species that never make it past this stage. Your planet becomes another cautionary tale, another reminder of how difficult it is to transcend the limitations of early development. And if we choose right, the wall showed images that took Lisa's breath away, beings of incredible beauty and wisdom, civilizations that had learned to work in perfect harmony, worlds where technology and nature existed in balance. It was everything humanity had ever dreamed of becoming, and you join the galactic community as equals. You become part of something greater than any single world could achieve alone. Lisa felt overwhelmed by the scope of what she was learning. But why are you telling me this? Why not reveal yourselves to everyone? Because the revelation itself is part of the test. If we simply appeared and announced our presence, it would rob your species of the chance to grow through making this choice independently. But if we do nothing, you might make the wrong choice simply because you didn't have enough information. So you need someone to help guide the process? You need someone who understands both worlds, someone who can help your species prepare for what's coming without overwhelming them with too much too quickly. The images on the wall faded, leaving Lisa alone with Kale and the profound weight of what she'd learned. She understood now why she had been kept in stasis for 20 years. This wasn't just about her recovery from touching the crystals. This was about preparing her for a role she never could have imagined. The crystals that put me in the coma, she said slowly. They didn't just preserve me, did they? They changed me somehow, Kale nodded. Your mind has been gradually adapted to process information and concepts that would normally be overwhelming for humans. You're no longer entirely human, but you're not alien either. You're something new, something that can bridge the gap between our worlds. Lisa looked at her hands, wondering what other changes had been made to her during those 20 years of sleep. She felt the same, but she could sense that something fundamental had shifted in how she perceived the world around her. What happens now? Now you have to decide whether you're ready to take on the greatest responsibility any human has ever faced. The future of your entire species may depend on the choices you make in the coming years. As the weight of this revelation settled over her, Lisa realized that her old life was truly over. The woman who had gone to sleep in the Arctic 20 years ago had been just a scientist studying strange readings. The woman who was waking up now held the fate of humanity in her hands. Lisa had been preparing for this moment for days. Cale had warned her that seeing what had happened to her world during her 20-year absence would be overwhelming. But nothing could have prepared her for the strange mix of excitement and dread she felt as she approached the neural interface chair. "Remember," Cale said softly, "you're not just observing these events. The interface will let you experience them as if you were there. You'll feel the emotions, understand the context, and see the connections that regular history books could never capture." The chair looked like something from a dream, made of the same pearl-like material as the walls. As Lisa settled into it, she felt a gentle, tingling sensation across her scalp. The world around her began to fade, replaced by something far more vivid and real. Suddenly, she was standing in a familiar place that felt completely foreign. It was New York City, but not the New York she remembered. The air was cleaner, almost sparkling in the sunlight. Buildings rose higher than ever before, but they seemed to grow from the earth rather than being built on top of it. Gardens cascaded down their sides, and she could hear the sound of flowing water everywhere. "This is 2015, Cale's voice came to her through the interface. 12 years after your accident, watch what happens next." Lisa saw people walking through the streets and immediately noticed something different about them. They moved with a sense of purpose, but also peace. There was less of the frantic energy she remembered from city life. People actually looked at each other, smiled, helped strangers without being asked. The scene shifted, and she found herself in what looked like a massive research facility. Scientists from around the world were working together on projects that seemed impossible. Clean energy that came from something that looked like crystalline structures, medical treatments that could heal injuries in minutes, and transportation systems that moved people without creating any pollution. "How is this possible?" Lisa asked. "When I left, we were still struggling with basic environmental problems. Your species made remarkable breakthroughs," Cale explained, though they didn't realize they were being guided toward discoveries that we knew were safe for them to find. The interface showed her more scenes from the past 20 years. She watched as wars that seemed destined to tear the world apart somehow ended with unexpected peace agreements. She saw natural disasters that could have been catastrophic, being minimized by last-minute scientific breakthroughs or changes in weather patterns. Then the scene changed to something more personal. Lisa found herself in a small apartment, watching a woman who looked remarkably like her mother, but older and more frail. The woman was sitting at a kitchen table, looking at old photographs. "Your family never stopped looking for you," Cale said gently. "They organized search parties for years. Your mother kept your room exactly as you left it until she passed." Away 5 years ago, Lisa felt tears streaming down her face as she watched her mother carefully placing a photo of her on the table. It was from her college graduation, both of them smiling brightly at the camera. Her mother looked so much older, so much more fragile than Lisa remembered. "She believed you were still alive somewhere," Cale continued. "She used to tell people that she could feel you were okay, that you were just ... away for a while." Scene shifted to show her younger brother, now a middle-aged man with children of his own. He was working as a teacher, and Lisa could see how much he looked like their father. He was showing his students a presentation about environmental science. Lisa realized he was using some of the same research techniques she had been developing before her accident. "Your work didn't die with your disappearance," Cale explained. "Your brother found your research notes and continued some of your projects. He never became a scientist himself, but he made sure your ideas reached people who could use them. Lisa watched as her brother's students conducted experiments that seemed remarkably advanced for their age. They were working with clean energy sources and studying environmental restoration techniques that she had only dreamed of 20 years ago. The interface showed her more scenes of technological advancement. Hospitals where diseases that had been death sentences in her time were now easily curable. Farms that produced more food than ever before, while actually improving the soil they grew in cities that ran entirely on clean energy while providing better lives for their residents. But how much of this is real progress, and how much is your intervention? Lisa asked. That's the beauty of it, Cale replied. We never gave your species anything directly. We simply created conditions where your own brilliant minds could make the right discoveries at the right time. Every breakthrough, every invention, every solution came from human creativity and intelligence. The scene changed again, and Lisa found herself in what looked like a massive library, but instead of books, it was filled with people from all over the world, sharing knowledge and ideas. Scientists, artists, teachers, and leaders were working together in ways that seemed impossible in the divided world she remembered. Your species learned something important during these 20 years, Cale said. You learned that cooperation produces better results than competition. That sharing knowledge makes everyone stronger, not weaker. Lisa watched as representatives from different countries worked together on projects that benefited everyone. There were still disagreements and conflicts, but they were resolved through discussion and compromise rather than violence. It's not perfect, Cale admitted. Your species still has the same fundamental nature you always had, but you've learned to channel that nature in more positive directions. The interface showed her environmental restoration projects that had brought dead areas back to life, ocean cleanup efforts that had restored marine ecosystems, forest restoration programs that had not only replanted trees, but had created entirely new habitats for wildlife. Your disappearance actually played a role in some of this, Cale explained. The search for you led to the discovery of several environmental problems that might have gone unnoticed otherwise. Your brother's dedication to continuing your work inspired a whole generation of young environmentalists. Lisa felt a strange mix of sadness and pride. She had missed 20 years of her life, but somehow her absence had contributed to making the world a better place. The life she had planned was gone, but the work she had cared about had continued and grown beyond anything she could have imagined. The final scene showed her the research station where she had worked 20 years ago. It was now a thriving international facility where scientists from around the world studied environmental phenomena. There was a memorial there with her name on it, surrounded by a garden that her colleagues had planted in her honor. They never forgot you, Cale said softly, and they never stopped hoping you might come back someday. As the interface slowly faded, Lisa found herself back in the alien medical facility, but everything felt different now. The world had moved on without her, but it had moved in directions that filled her with hope rather than despair. You're telling me, Lisa said slowly, is that humanity has actually been succeeding? That we're passing this test you mentioned? You're doing better than most species at this stage, Cale replied. But the hardest part is still ahead of you. Now comes the real test, learning that you're not alone in the universe. Lisa had been walking through the alien facility for hours, trying to process everything she had learned. The corridors seemed to shift and change around her, always leading her to exactly where she needed to be. Today they led her to a room she had never seen before, one with walls that seemed to open directly onto the stars. Cale was waiting for her there, but he looked different somehow. His usual calm demeanor carried an undercurrent of something that might have been sadness, or perhaps anticipation. You've been thinking about everything I've shown you, he said. It wasn't a question. Lisa nodded, moving to stand beside him. As they looked out at the vast expanse of space, I keep wondering if I'm the right person for this. 20 years ago, I was just a scientist studying some unusual readings. Now you're telling me I might be responsible for guiding humanity's future. Do you think there is a right person for something like this? I don't know, maybe someone with more experience, more wisdom, someone who understands politics or leadership better than I do. Cale turned to face her, his large eyes reflecting. The starlight? Lisa, in all our observations of developing species, do you know what we've learned about the individuals who successfully guide their people through the convergence? She shook her head. They're never the ones who think they're qualified. They're always the ones who understand the weight of the responsibility and feel humbled by it. The ones who fail are usually those who believe they have all the answers. Lisa felt a chill run through her. You saying I don't have a choice in this? You always have a choice. That's what makes this so important. Kale gestured to the stars around them. But before you decide, there's something else you need to understand. Something about my people and why we're asking you to take on this role. The room around them began to change, and Lisa found herself standing in what looked like a vast library. But the books were made of light, and the shelves stretched infinitely upward. Other beings moved through the space, some that looked like Kale and others that were completely different. This is our homeworld, or rather, what it's becoming, Kale explained. My people are undergoing our own transformation. We're evolving beyond physical existence, preparing to join with the cosmic consciousness that connects all advanced civilizations. Lisa watched in wonder as some of the beings seemed to dissolve into pure light, their forms becoming part of the glowing atmosphere around them. You're leaving? Not leaving. Transcending. It's the natural progression for species that successfully navigate their own convergence. We've spent thousands of years in this physical form, learning and growing, and helping others. Now it's time for us to become something greater. But what about all the species you're still monitoring? What about Earth? That's exactly why we need you. Kale's expression grew more serious. We can't guide humanity through the convergence and then abandon you. Someone needs to be there to help your species take the next steps, to prepare you for eventual contact with the galactic community. Lisa felt the weight of this responsibility settling on her shoulders like a heavy cloak. How can I possibly prepare an entire species for something I barely understand myself? You won't be doing it alone. The process takes decades, sometimes centuries. You'll identify others who can handle the truth, people who can help spread the knowledge gradually. Scientists, leaders, teachers, artists, people who can help humanity adjust to the reality of cosmic citizenship. The scene around them shifted, showing Lisa images of other worlds where this transition had been successful. She saw species that had learned to work together not just on their own planets but across star systems. Civilizations that had solved problems she couldn't even imagine, all working together in harmony. But I've also seen the failures, Kale continued. The images changed to show worlds where the revelation had gone wrong, civilizations that had descended into panic, governments that had turned the knowledge into weapons, societies that had collapsed under the weight of cosmic insignificance. What made the difference between success and failure? The approach. Species that tried to reveal everything at once almost always failed. Those that took time to prepare their people, to gradually expand their understanding of their place in the universe, had much better success rates. Lisa studied the images of failed civilizations, trying to understand what had gone wrong. How would I even begin something like this? You would start with the people closest to you. Your brother, who has been continuing your work, your former colleagues who have been building on your research, people who already have the intellectual foundation to understand what you're telling them. And if I refuse, if I decide I can't handle this responsibility? Kale was quiet for a long moment. Then we would erase your memories of this experience and return you to your old life. You would wake up in a hospital, told that you had been in a coma after an accident. You would have no memory of us, no knowledge of what's coming. That sounds like it might be the safer choice. Safer for you, perhaps, but not necessarily for your species. Without guidance, humanity will still face the convergence. The knowledge will still emerge. Contact will still happen eventually. But it might happen in ways that your people aren't prepared for. The room around them changed again, this time showing Lisa what looked like Earth's near future. She saw scenarios where humanity discovered they weren't alone through hostile contact, through accidental encounters, through the gradual breakdown of the concealment systems that had kept alien presence hidden. In most of these scenarios, Kale explained, the results are chaotic. Governments panic, religions fracture, society struggles to maintain stability. Millions of people suffer because they weren't prepared for the truth. But if I accept this role, I can prevent that.
You can help minimize it?
You can't prevent the chaos entirely, but you can help your species approach it with wisdom instead of fear. Lisa looked at the images of potential futures, seeing the difference between guided and unguided first contact. The difference was dramatic and heartbreaking. There's something else you need to know, Kale said softly. If you accept this responsibility, you'll be changed even more than you already have been. The knowledge you'll need to carry, the mental adaptations required to process cosmic-level information, they'll make you less human in some ways. What do you mean? You'll live longer than normal humans. Your thinking will become more complex, more multidimensional. You'll see connections and patterns that others miss. In many ways, you'll become isolated from the very people you're trying to help. Lisa felt a deep sadness at this revelation, so I'd be giving up any chance of a normal life. Yes, you would be dedicating your existence to something greater than individual happiness. It's not a sacrifice we ask lightly. The weight of the decision pressed down on Lisa as she considered her options. She could return to her old life, live out her remaining years in ignorance and peace, or she could accept a burden that would transform her into something between human and alien, spending her extended life guiding humanity toward a future she might not live to see completed. How long do I have to decide? As long as you need. But understand that every day you delay is another day your species moves closer to the convergence without preparation. Lisa looked out at the stars one more time, thinking about her mother who had believed she was still alive somewhere, about her brother who had continued her work, about all the people on Earth who had no idea what was coming. If I say yes, she said finally, when would I start? Immediately. We would begin the final phase of your transformation. Download the knowledge you'll need and prepare you for reintegration with human society. Within a few months, you could be back on Earth, beginning the most important work any human has ever undertaken?
Yes.
As Lisa stood there, surrounded by the vast cosmos and the weight of an impossible choice, realized that her real life had been leading to this moment all along. The question wasn't whether she was qualified for this responsibility. The question was whether she had the courage to accept it. Lisa stood in front of the mirror in her room, hardly recognizing the person looking back at her. 3 weeks had passed since she made her decision, and the transformation was complete. She looked the same on the outside, but everything inside had changed. Her mind felt vast and interconnected, capable of processing information in ways that would have been impossible before. The knowledge download had been overwhelming at first. Centuries of galactic history, the rise and fall of countless civilizations, the delicate balance of cosmic politics, and the complex process of species integration had all been carefully placed in her consciousness. But more than that, she now understood the true scope of what she was about to undertake. Are you ready? Kale asked, entering the room behind her. He looked different now, too, more translucent than before, as if he was already beginning his transformation to pure energy. I don't think anyone could ever be ready for this, Lisa replied, turning to face him. But I've made my choice, and I'm committed to it. Remember, the hardest part isn't the knowledge itself. It's knowing how much to reveal and when. Move. Too fast, and you'll create panic. Move too slowly, and your species might stumble into contact unprepared. Lisa nodded. She had been studying the case histories of other species, learning from their successes and failures. The key was patience, careful selection of initial contacts, and building a network of trust gradually. Your first contact will be your brother, Kale reminded her. He's been working at the research institute built around your original project. He's already been exposed to concepts that will make your return easier to explain. And if he doesn't believe me, then you'll have to prove it, gradually and carefully. But remember, you're not just returning from the dead. You're returning with a purpose that could save your entire species. The transport that would take Lisa back to Earth was unlike anything she had imagined. It looked more like a bubble of light than a traditional spacecraft, and the journey felt like floating through a dream. As Earth grew larger in the view screen, Lisa felt a mixture of excitement and terror that threatened to overwhelm her. 20 years. Everything she had known was gone, replaced by a world that was both familiar and completely foreign. The people she had loved were older, changed, some of them gone forever. The life she had planned to live was impossible now. But the life she was about to begin might be the most important in human history. The transport set her down in a forest clearing about 50 miles from the research station. It was early morning, and the sunlight filtering through the trees felt like a blessing. After weeks in the artificial environment of the alien facility, Lisa took a deep breath of earth air and began walking. She had memorized every detail of the route. The walk would take her most of the day, giving her time to adjust to being back on her home planet. More importantly, it would give her time to prepare for what might be the most difficult conversation of her life. The forest around her was different from what she remembered. The trees seemed healthier, the air cleaner, the wildlife more abundant. She could see the subtle influence of the environmental restoration programs she had witnessed through the neural interface. Humanity had indeed been making remarkable progress. As she walked, Lisa practiced what she would say to her brother. How do you tell someone that you've been kept alive by aliens for 20 years? How do you explain that you've been chosen to guide humanity through its transition to cosmic citizenship? How do you make any of it sound believable? By the time she reached the research station, the sun was beginning to set. The building looked exactly as she had seen it in the interface. Gleaming structure of glass and steel surrounded by carefully maintained gardens. There was a small memorial near the entrance with her name on it, and Lisa felt tears in her eyes as she read the inscription. Dr. Lisa Chen, whose dedication to understanding our world continues to inspire us all. She made her way to the main building, using her old security codes that somehow still worked. The hallways were quiet at this hour, most of the staff having gone home for the day. Lisa found her way to the office that had once been hers, now occupied by her brother. He was still there, working late as he always had. Through the glass door, she could see him hunched over a computer, analyzing data that looked remarkably similar to the readings she had been studying 20 years ago. His hair was gray now, and there were lines around his eyes that spoke of years of worry and loss. Lisa took a deep breath and knocked on the door. Her brother looked up, and for a moment his expression was one of mild annoyance at being interrupted. Then he saw her face, and his entire world changed. The coffee cup in his hand fell to the floor, shattering on the tiles. "Lisa," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "Hello, David," she said softly. "I know this is impossible to believe, but I'm really here." He stared at her for a long moment, his mind clearly struggling to process what he was seeing. Then he was around the desk and pulling her into a hug that felt like coming home after the longest journey imaginable. "How?" he asked, his voice breaking. "We looked for you everywhere. The avalanche, the rescue teams. We never found a trace." "No. And I'm sorry for what you all went through. But I need you to listen to me carefully, because what I'm about to tell you will sound impossible." They talked through the night. Lisa carefully revealed pieces of her story, watching David's reactions, adjusting her approach based on his responses. She started with the crystals, the strange readings they had detected, the accident that had put her in suspended animation. "Animation?" David asked. "That's not possible with current technology, not with human technology," Lisa said carefully. "But David, we're not alone in the universe. We never have been." She showed him the small communication device Kale had given her, demonstrating its impossible capabilities. She shared knowledge that no human could have discovered on their own. Insights into the environmental restoration projects that had been so successful over the past 20 years. Slowly, carefully, she began to expand his understanding of humanity's place in the cosmos. She told him about the monitoring stations, the subtle guidance that had helped their species avoid disaster, the approaching moment when humanity would need to choose its future. "So you're saying aliens have been watching us all along?" David asked, his scientific mind struggling with the implications. "Not just watching, helping when necessary. And now they're preparing to leave, to evolve beyond physical existence. Someone needs to take over the role of guiding humanity through what comes next. And that someone is you." Lisa nodded. "I've been changed, David. My mind has been expanded to handle concepts and knowledge that would overwhelm most people. But I can't do this alone. I need people I can trust. People who can help me build a network of individuals who can handle the truth. David was quiet for a long time, processing everything she had told him. Finally, he looked up at her with eyes that held both wonder and fear. What do you need me to do? Help me start the most important conversation in human history. Help me prepare our species for a future that's both more wonderful and more challenging than anything we've ever imagined. As the sun rose over the research station, Lisa felt a sense of purpose that went beyond anything she had ever experienced. Her old life was gone, but her new life was just beginning. She had accepted the responsibility of guiding humanity toward its cosmic destiny, and she would not fail. The hardest part was behind her. Now came the real work of changing the world, one conversation at a time.